fast, crossing county lines just to make my name in the city. Took everything, put it on the line, cause I never break or back down. One shot is do or die. Welcome to the bottom of the bottom, me and Saint Asylum. If I saw him and I had to get him, yeah. Finally got him, corner boost to mix up the solution. I am such a problem, crazy goon and gone off that pollution with a group of goblins, super choppers, and they hoot and holler when we scooping dollars, losing partners. But if you started, we gon' finish it. Welcome to the wild side. You know what the business is. I'm a boss, I'm a king, I'm right on the top. I'm a boss, I'm a king, I cannot be stopped. I'm a boss, I'm a king, I'm right on the top. I'm a boss, I'm a king, I cannot be stopped. I'm a boss, I'm a king, I'm right on the top. I'm a boss, I'm a king, I cannot be stopped. I'm a boss, I'm a king, I'm right on the top. I'm a boss, I'm a king, I'm a boss, I'm a... I am a king on the throne and I'm running the kingdom with all my ability, using my strength and agility. Money.
Put your hands up, everybody know that. Don't hold back, got you on go Jack. Go DJ, that's my DJ. Party on replay, party on replay.
We've always had not just a system of racism in our country, but also classism.
Black people have always wanted to be a part of the economic mainstream of society.
There's been mistrust, as I said, in the healthcare system because of inherent racism.
Slavery was justified by physicians and psychiatrists who argued that instead of oppressing us, they were benefiting us.
I guess I'd like to see more people having more of an equal voice.
Crossing county lines just to make my name in the city. Took everything, put it on the line, cause I never break or back down. One shot is do or die. Welcome to the bottom of the bottom, me and Saint Asylum. If I saw him and I had to get him, yeah, I finally got him. Corner boost to mix up the solution. I am such a problem, crazy goon and gone off that pollution with a group of goblins, super choppers, and they hoot and holler when we scooping dollars, losing partners. But if you started, we gon' finish it. Welcome to the wild side. You know what the business is. I'm a boss, I'm a king, I'm right on the top. I'm a boss, I'm a king, I cannot be stopped. I'm a boss, I'm a king, I'm right on the top. I'm a boss, I'm a king, I cannot be stopped. I'm a boss, I'm a king, I'm right on the top. I'm a boss, I'm a king, I cannot be stopped. I'm a boss, I'm a king, I'm right on the top.
not just a system of racism in our country, but also classism.
Black people have always wanted to be a part of the economic mainstream of society.
There's been mistrust, as I said, in the healthcare system because of inherent racism.
Slavery was justified by physicians and psychiatrists who argued that instead of oppressing us, they were benefiting us.
I guess I'd like to see more people having more of an equal voice.
Crossing county lines just to make my name in the city. Took everything, put it on the line, cause I never break or back down. One shot is do or die.
Welcome to the bottom of the bottom, me and Seen Asylum. If I saw him and I had to get him, yeah, I finally got him. Going to boost and mix up the solution. I am such a problem, crazy going and going up that pollution with a group of goblins, super choppers, and they hoot and holler when we super dollars, lose a partnership. But if you started, we gon' finish it. Welcome to the wild side. You know what the business.
I'm a boss, I'm a king, I reign on the top. I'm a boss, I'm a king, I cannot be stopped. I'm a boss, I'm a king, I reign on the top. I'm a boss, I'm a king, I cannot be stopped. I'm a boss, I'm a king, I reign on the top. I'm a boss, I'm a king, I cannot be stopped. I'm a boss, I'm a king, I reign on the top. I'm a boss, I'm a king, I'm a boss, I'm a I am a king on the throne and I'm running the kingdom with all my ability, using my strength and agility. Money.
Put your hands up, everybody knows that. Don't hold back, got you on go jack. Go DJ, that's my DJ. Party on replay, party on replay.
Not just a system of racism in our country, but also classism.
Black people have always wanted to be a part of the economic mainstream of society.
There's been mistrust, as I said, in the healthcare system because of inherent racism.
Slavery was justified by physicians and psychiatrists who argued that instead of oppressing us, they were benefiting us.
I guess I'd like to see more people having more of an equal voice.
Hello, can you hear me now? All right, but I cannot hear you.
Can you hear me? You hear me now?
Yes, I hear you perfectly. I'm in my office and my sound is like my office is motion sensitive and it refuses to acknowledge me sometimes.
No worries.
Thank you so much, Dr. Powers. It's such a pleasure having you on. And
no problem. Thank you for having me.
Yes, of course. And you guys, so what's going on is we originally had Louis L. Reed as our speaker, but you guys have to remember the reason why we're doing all these virtual events is because we're still at the time of COVID and you know, life is still happening. So because of a family emergency, he wasn't able to come with us. But you guys, we got to keep him in our prayers so that
No doubt.
yeah, hopefully everything works out with them. Now, in terms of me and what's going on, you guys, I want to introduce myself, and then I'll definitely introduce our guests. So I'm Saria, and we're actually Team Hero of World Financial Group. So that's the group that's doing this event. And our dream is to change the world through education. And that's actually why we created the Black Wealth Matters educational series. So we keep this as an ongoing series, ongoing. This is our second one. And we want to introduce all Americans to industry experts so that they can learn history. And those experts can also not only share the past and the present, but they can also give us the best path to the future. And we call this educational activism, right? So I'm a financial professional, and I thought of this was my brainchild, and I thought of it after George Floyd's murder, because I realized that as a financial professional, you always think that money's most important, but it's not. It's all areas of education are important in addition to finance. So I brought this to my dynamic and amazing and diverse team with Kathy Flores, who's actually doing tech, along with Jamie Hiley. I brought it to Fabiana Downer, as well as Gilbert Aguilar and Ken Gray. And together we all put our brains together, and we found some of the most dynamic speakers in the country. So leaders in all facets of areas that impact our everyday lives that you might not even be aware of. So for today, you are going to hear from Dr. Tyrone Powers about the history, present, and future of police and Black men. Along with me later, I'm going to share with you a little bit about our company, as well as how this all ties into our finances, and most importantly, what you can do moving forward. So during the event, you can type questions in the chat room. You'll also have an opportunity to buy his book. He's actually an author, so we'll give you more information about his book. And if you guys can, please use the hashtag BWM series to help us promote the event. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce to you Dr. Tyrone Powers. So Dr. Tyrone Powers, I was actually introduced to him by my girlfriend and sorority sister, Aisha Braveboy, who's one of our top supporters and the state's attorney for Prince George's County, Maryland. And she and Dr. Powers work together very closely. And I'm sure, hopefully, he'll tell us a little bit about that. He's an expert consultant to several legal teams on criminal and civil law cases concerning civil rights violations. So he's actually someone that she utilizes when she wants to make a case against someone who violated civil rights cases, and those sometimes police officers. He is also from law enforcement. He served as a director of the Homeland Security and Criminal Justice Institute at a college in Maryland. He's been part of the FBI for many years, and I believe there's some training in terrorists, domestic terrorists, international analytics certification. He's a certified police entrance level training academy. He believes in social justice. I mean, I literally can go on and on and on, but I feel like the best way that we can learn about Dr. Powers is from Dr. Powers. So Dr. Powers, without just beating a dead horse, can you tell us a little bit about your book?
Yeah. Yeah, well, thank you, and thank you for having me. Thanks for the opportunity, and I really do like this forum because you're absolutely right. What happens in the criminal justice system and policing impacts us in so many ways, and certainly our finances and our ability to advance economically, and even to be involved in the concept of dramatically reducing crime in our neighborhoods and advancing life chances for everyone. So I wrote my book. I was a special agent with the FBI, and the FBI is one of those organizations that initially didn't hire people of color at all. J. Edgar Hoover didn't believe that we should be a part of the agency, and even when he hired us as chauffeurs, or he used us as infiltrators to go into certain organizations, whether it was the SCLC with Martin Luther King Jr. or the historic COINTELPRO operations, which destroyed a lot of Black organizations. So when I decided, I had the opportunity to go into the FBI. I was with the Maryland State Police at the time, and a friend of mine had went into the FBI, and I told my family that I was going into the FBI. Obviously, there was a lot of pushback from some of my family members because of the historic antagonistic relationship between the FBI and communities of color and what they had done to facilitate, if not instigate, the harming of certain Black leaders due to their fear of them. But my mother at the time told me that, if that's where I was being led, that's where I should go. And so I did. And in hindsight, I'm glad I did, because I was able to learn so much and bring so much back to our communities. And as a result of that, I wrote the book about my life growing up in Baltimore, how I made the decision to go into the agency, and then what I learned in the agency that can be brought back to our community that can help us in terms of investigations, in terms of what we're seeing now with police misconduct, not just the shooting of unarmed Black males, but the other inequities in the criminal justice system, which have disenfranchised us financially. Again, that links right in with your purpose, and have harmed us from a generational standpoint. And so I wrote about that. And what was remarkable about it, I will say, is that I didn't write it necessarily because I talked about all the aspects of my life. I talked about even the difficulties I had early on with my sister being I was very clear and transparent, my sister being raped by my father, biological father. So I told the whole story because I wanted to say to young people and others how these obstacles in your early life cannot necessarily prevent you from achieving, that we're dealing with racism and systemic racism, but we have to continue in spite of it. And then after the book was completed, to my surprise, I was invited to speak essentially all over the world, from Cuba to Bermuda, because some of the experiences in the book touched on the lives of others. And not only did they want to know about my experience with criminal justice and the FBI, they wanted to know what solutions they could use to give to young people and others in order to take this journey to success in spite of the obstacles that we have to deal with every day.
That's awesome. That is so awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Now, is there anything else you would like to get started?
No, we can. I just want to thank you, and I want to thank, like you said, State's Attorney Aisha Braveboy. She's doing an excellent job in trying to change the system from where she is, because a lot of times we try to change it from outside. She is there, and she's just trying to make it better for everyone. I mean, she is really a tremendous individual in terms of her profession, but more importantly, she has not separated her profession from her work in the community. So it's been an extraordinary partnership that I had with her office.
Yeah, and Aisha has always been like that. Aisha, you guys, she was actually the person, in my opinion, who made this event possible, because when me and my team created it, we wanted to go into voting and politics and all of that good stuff. But I've known my friend Aisha since I was 18. So my brain didn't understand that she was an adult. And so when I was asking her about the event, I went completely past her. I'm like, who do you know that? Who do you know that's the actual grown-up version of you? And she's like, me. And and then she ended up, we were just I tell the story for those of you guys who it's your first time. Aisha Braveboy is the state's attorney for the predominantly for the county that has the most Black people in America, not the most, but the wealthiest, predominantly Black county in America. Yes. And she has always been a person that gave back to the community. But because sometimes you're too close to someone, you don't really understand how amazing they are. And when I read her bio, because I had her send in her bio, Dr. Powers, I read her bio. When I got done, I was shaking. I was like, I was shaking. I was shaking. I was trying to tell my mom about her, and I had to pull over.
Yeah, she's exceptional, and she's for justice and fairness, and she's determined to do it through a process, and she brings the right people around her to be able to accomplish that goal. She's bold and caring and fair, and trying to really make a significant difference. She's really and I'm glad you all are connected, because again, this topic, the whole platform that you have here is significant to everything we're dealing with in terms of criminal justice, but also they're not mutually exclusive. Criminal justice, our financial wealth, our progress, because once you disenfranchise people through the criminal justice system, it prevents them from achieving certain positions, which mean it prevents them from achieving economic stability and wealth that could change the next generation. So it is intricately linked to exactly what you're doing, your purpose.
Absolutely. Systemic racism functions best through poverty.
No doubt. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yes. All right. So, Kathy, can you bring up his presentation? Now, what I'll do, Dr. Thomas, is I'm going to get myself off camera. But if there are things that I feel as if we need to delve a little bit more in, I would just ask you about it, just because I know that whatever I'm thinking, chances are they're thinking it. And then also, as there are questions towards the end, we'll get those questions answered too. All right.
Problem.
Thank you.
All right. So again, thank you for this opportunity. So I know we have but an hour to talk about this, but the key and the foundation of this is not just the policing of Black people and the policing of Black men and its impact, but the underlying piece that have led to what we're seeing today in the murder of George Floyd, the other shootings, and the inequities, disparities in the criminal justice system that manifests itself in all parts of our lives. It's systemic. So even if we have a successful conviction of Officer Chauvin in the George Floyd case, unless we deal with the systemic issues and understand them, then we'll be dealing with this again in another year or another month, or maybe even another week or another day. So I think that's key. This foundation piece, which I'll go through relatively quickly because it could be a semester of classes in and of itself, but it's important for us to connect the dots, because when I was in the FBI Academy, I used to always say to us, you will never effectively counter that which you do not fully understand. Superficial understanding can only lead to superficial solutions. So if you are to understand today what we are experiencing, you have to go back in history. So we start with the slave patrols, and you can move to the next slide. Really, we start with the slave patrols because the objective of the slave patrols was to keep runaway slaves on the plantation. And so the concept, we've not moved far away from the concept, except that we're not enslaved people anymore, technically, or certainly not through chattel slavery, maybe through psychological issues that we can talk about later on. But the whole concept of a patrol. So officers have patrol areas where they patrol certain sectors, and they are to go around to have a controlling effect. The person who founded policing, I won't get into him deeply, or modern policing, Sir Robert Peel, began to look at this, and he said, the police are the people and the people are the police, so it shouldn't be a controlling effect. Both of them have a vested interest in dramatically reducing crime and increasing life chances and protecting and serving. And what the slave patrols, what came out of the slave patrols, is a controlling kind of philosophy, specifically directed at Black people in terms of keeping them on the plantation. And so these people were empowered to use physical force, empowered by the law, which is an important thing, because as we bring this up to date, we're going to see that none of this would be successful, this controlling of people in this manner, unless the law was behind it. And so that's why you have to have a great understanding of law. Again, back to State's Attorney Aisha Braveboy and others like her across the country or in those positions, understanding that in order to change this thing, even the shooting and the brutalities and all, there has to be people in positions of power with the power to do it through the law. So the slave patrols would chase down, apprehend, and return to their owners runaway slaves, provide a form of organized terror to deter slave revolts. And so the idea was policing would move away from this, where terror wouldn't be a part of it, that the people are the police and the police are the people. Again, the 9 principles, the 9 foundation principles of what policing is supposed to be. And I always usually go back to that. I won't go back there tonight, because once we know what policing is supposed to be, we know what to ask for, even as we move forward past George Floyd, because we can say, this is what it's supposed to be, and we have knowledge of what it's supposed to be, so we can adequately critique what it's not. And again, the slave patrols was to maintain a form of discipline for slave workers who were subject to summary justice outside of the law. We can move to the next slide. So the slave patrols should be appointed at least 4 in each captain's district, and I'm going to kind of relate that to where we are today, because the foundation of our police force has not moved far away from this, even though it was intended to. It should be their duty for 2 of their at number least to patrol their respective districts once in every week. They shall have the power to inflict corporal punishment. Now, I just want you to remember that these were the laws in North Carolina and southern states, that these patrollers at the time, which speaks to the systemic racism, had the power to inflict corporal punishment. So when we get into the concept, this is what we mean by systemic racism that leads to the kind of actions that uneducated, and I don't mean uneducated in terms of formal educated, but untrained and uneducated police officers are still acting in a manner that they had the power to use corporal punishment to deal with people who they still kind of see in that concept. And I'll tell you about that from my FBI experiences in the academy and my police experience, how some of my classmates still kind of see their role as the role of those in the slave patrol, even though we had supposed to advance past that, which is why training is so important. But notice too that it talks about 2. So we talk about patrol cars used to have 2 police officers in it. Notice the historic foundation of this. And again, to undo systemic racism, you need to understand the system that it's built upon, the foundation that it's built upon. You can't build anything, a house, a system, or anything else without the foundation, and you can't reconstruct it or reform it, the language that's being used today, without understanding how it was structured, so we can deal with all those little aspects that we are not necessarily seeing on the face of it, and we can understand the psychology of policing, that it hasn't moved completely away from its origins of the slave patrols. We can move on. So again, 1 patroller shall have the power to seize any Negro slave who behaves in a certain way, previous to the entering on their duties. Patrol shall call on some acting magistrate. And I kind of let you, I don't want to read this to you. I want you to read it, because I want you to kind of in your mind be able to connect the dots as we move forward and talk about where we are today in policing, that the foundation. So constantly and consistently, we will hear, whether they're lawyers or others, talk about systemic racism, systemic racism. Well, that systemic racism has been with us for a very long time. And as we begin to write, I'm working for a couple of police agencies now who have brought me in to examine their policies, their practices, their rules and regulations, because it's not just a matter of police officers not following the rules and regulations. It is how the rules and regulations are written. In many police departments, they call them guidelines. And so at the foundation of the mindset of some people who go into policing with the control mindset. It's still this kind of philosophy that was prevalent during the slave patrols, and your policies and your training and your academy have to undo that. You just can't go into an academy setting and say, okay, this is what police officers do. Here's a gun, a badge, a baton, a taser, here's mace, here's what the law says. So you've got to somehow connect it to the fact that the people you are training have been socialized through a system that their job is something totally different. And you may not necessarily see that on the surface of that, but you have to understand that our socialization and our education process kind of put that in their mind, even as they're entering in policing. So your training have to account for that, or otherwise you will transgressions.
And Dr. Powers, our last speaker was the sergeant, the former sergeant at Yale University. And I didn't realize how much college towns actually impact those communities until I just watched a Black man author who was talking about how colleges need to pay taxes, and they also should be contributing to police reform because they have such a hard police presence. And he was saying that it's the culture of policing where the racism is. It's the culture. The culture needs to change. And exactly what you're saying, it has to start in that system of the schooling or the education that they're doing. But I just wanted to say that because I thought that was such an interesting way that he said it, and then it applies to other things, the culture. So
yeah, and you've got to know when you think about this though for a second, because you make an excellent point. Kind of jumping ahead a little bit, but we can move to the next slide anyway. But kind of jumping ahead a little bit, think about this. The police officers, you can become a police officer almost anywhere in the United States at 21 years of age. Now, physiologically, from a scientific standpoint, we know that the brain of a male does not fully mature to 25 or 26, the brain of a female 22. So at 21, you're allowing people to go into policing, the only profession in the United States of America that allows you to take the life of another human being based on your judgment and training. Remember, the military, we have a Posse Comitatus Act that said the military cannot police our cities, only if there's martial law declared. So you have 21-year-olds who you already know physiologically, scientifically, and medically, brains are not fully developed, and you are allowing them, you're giving them this great amount of discretion. If you do that, then your training has to be top notch, because you are training people who are not fully mentally developed. And all of what they bring to that position at that particular point is what they've learned through the socialization and education process. And now they have this enormous amount of power that we don't give anyone else in society, the ability to make a decision through their discretion on whether to remove another human being from existence based on the law. They're supposed to use the law and that discretion, but you already know they're not fully developed. So your academy, the people who teach in academies, have to not only understand the law, the process, the standards, what should and what shouldn't be done, but you have to understand the mind, the human terrain of the people you're educating. Otherwise, that culture will continue, because you're teaching the nuts and the bolts, but the education or the miseducation and the psychology of these individuals are not overcome by you telling them what the Fourth Amendment is. You're giving them the nuts and the bolts, but you've also got to understand, if I'm training police officers, I'm giving them this much power and discretion, I better get into the behavioral science of these individuals who are sitting in front of me. And that's what we haven't done throughout this, across this nation, is to walk them back through this. And some of the training courses that I do now, and I just did one in Philadelphia with the Philadelphia Sheriff's Department for all of their supervisors. We take them back this far because we want them to see how their actions are seen through the eyes of others who do know this history. If you're in policing, when I was with the FBI, they said you've got to see the world through the eyes of others, not through your eyes, but how do people see you, so that your response can be consistent with that. And if you need to de-escalate a situation, you have to know how they're seeing this, so I can de-escalate a situation. We don't do enough of that part in our academies, which create this culture that is built on an education and socialization that happens way before the academy, but it's not addressed in the academy because we're too busy not too busy, but we're busy dealing with the laws and the nuts and bolts of that situation. So here's the systemic part. Notice that even we go from the slave patrols to the slave acts to the fugitive slave acts, all of these are controlling mechanisms. So when police officers who may come into these particular agencies, let's say they're not of color or maybe even of color, and we get into that later on too, who have been educated in our public school system, they come, if they've done any of the studies, with this knowledge of history, that their job as police officers is similar to that of the slave patrollers, of those who participated in what was the Fugitive Slave Act. That's what we mean by systemic, a system that has been built, that is evolutionary in its process, that has decayed to this particular point, that's going to need more than one case or more than one success to change. And we have to understand that. So we can move to the next slide. Okay, the black codes, and this is something that I always talk to students about. One of the things with the black codes, that even as people of color became free, you read through this, you can read through it on your own. The objective was, and it definitely connects perfectly with the purpose of this entire forum and your organization, that the philosophy was that we have to not only, if we're going to control the population through the laws, through the practices, through the acts, we also have to prevent them from reading. So during the course of slavery, I tell my students this all the time, especially as I'm teaching a course now as an adjunct at one of the historically black colleges and universities, here in Maryland, Bowie State University. I always tell my students now, I say, do you understand that they were so concerned that education, whether it's academic or whether it's financial education, all a part of it, would free you so much that they had specific laws preventing us from reading and writing. I tell my students, I said, when I give you a homework assignment or when I give you an assignment in course, you should embrace that, understanding that historically they were so concerned that if we learned to read and write, if we understood this history, if we understood the system or the systematic way that we have gotten to where we are today with policing in the United States, or not only with policing, as State's Attorney Aisha Braveboy can tell you, and probably will tell you when she come on, judges and prosecutors and defense attorneys, all of that. We're looking at policing, but it's bigger than just that, because she will begin to tell you that prosecutors decide whether police officers will be indicted or what information or what case go before the grand jury or whether they will take it before the grand jury. So it's more than just the police officers. If we understood that, if we studied that, if we went back in history and seen that it is systemic, right, that it's systematic, then we would have a better chance of reforming policing. If we start from George Floyd and try to reform policing, or even if we start from Rodney King and start to reform policing, we will not put in all the ingredients to bake the cake of reform. We will only have a partial solution to a bigger problem. We have to go back and teach all of this. The fact that they did not want you to be educated, right? That they did not want you to learn. They did not want you to be able to do the research, to understand everything from history to finances. They did not, and put in laws in effect that said, if I catch you reading and writing, or if I catch even whites teaching you to read and write, then whites could be punished for teaching blacks to read and write, because their thought process was that educated people are uncontrollable, but not uncontrollable in a bad way unless we're trying to oppress them. So that's a key concept of understanding systemic racism. So when you have a crime problem in certain cities in the nation, you've got to connect that crime problem to the education system in that particular city, because education is supposed to make you more civilized. So crime is not necessarily just a policing issue to use more force, to be more brutal, to be more controlling, to be more aggressive, but it's also an education issue. And we don't have to guess at that or come up with a conspiracy theory on that, because history dictates that through the laws that existed, the black codes or the Jim Crow laws. They were all designed to not only control the body, but to control the mind. And I'll just add that piece as we move on, Dr. Carter G. Woodson, who is the founder of Negro History Week and then the founder of Black History Month, said if you control a man's thinking, you don't have to worry about his actions. So we have Black History Month. And what we really do need to do is study Dr. Carter G. Woodson, because he said, it's the battle is for the mind. If you want people to understand systemic racism beyond protests, then you've got to educate them to do that. If you want better police officers, you've got to educate them to do that, because you can control their bodies. I can arrest someone, send them to prison for 15 years, but that doesn't mean they'll come out a better person. I always use the analogy that if you throw dirty clothes in a wash machine and never turn the wash machine on, they're going to come out dirty. I don't care the fact that you put them in a wash machine. So putting people in prison, but not having anything in there that agitate and change their minds and their behavior, they're going to come out and commit more crime. But let me get back to this this particular point. So COINTELPRO, this is what I need to say about this thing called COINTELPRO, this program that was put in place by J. Edgar Hoover, who was the director of the FBI from the 1920s until he dropped dead in his house, in his home, in his bedroom in 1974. He created COINTELPRO Black. COINTELPRO was a system that he put in place because he thought that blacks were becoming too uppity, they were progressing too much, and they were becoming too educated. So COINTELPRO targeted almost every black organization. Just think about this for a minute, and I don't want to dwell on this all, but 17,000 files on Dr. Martin Luther King alone. Dr. Martin Luther King talked about peace, talked about reducing crime, talked about getting rid of brutality in the community, and the FBI found him a threat. Just like police officers sometimes today said, well, my life felt threatened. J. Edgar Hoover put the whole FBI apparatus against Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Martin Luther King Jr. was educated, got his doctorate degree at a young age, and unfortunately was assassinated at 39, like a lot of other black leaders. Malcolm X was assassinated at 39. These people never made it out of their 40s, mainly because they were seen as a threat to the status quo. 17,000 pages on Dr. Martin Luther King's life by the law enforcers, the criminal justice apparatus. This is what I mean by systemic racism. So the criminal justice system targeted Martin Luther King Jr. more than they have any other person in the history of this country. They targeted this young man from the time he left college, from the time of the Montgomery bus boycott movement, till the time that he was assassinated on the balcony of the Lorraine Motel in 1968 in Memphis, Tennessee.
And Dr. Powers, one of the things that his daughter was actually a speaker for our company at our convention, and she said that the government assassinated her dad. So what it sounds like to me, and I gave you a clip of all the times that the government and the police departments assassinated groups of Black people. What it sounds like to me is that this is, you finish talking, because my brain goes into so many different directions. And I know that J. Edgar Hoover was appointed by Calvin Coolidge, and he was under so many different presidents, but no one saw him as an issue. No one saw him as a problem. He died comfortable as an old man in his bed. Meanwhile, he had all these people assassinated and bombed. He created this culture. He didn't create it. It was the same culture that has already existed. And then what's so shocking to me is that I didn't know about it. As a 44-year-old woman, I didn't know about it, right? And there are so many people. And then when we talk about racism, people say things like, don't talk about it. Don't talk about it. It's just, it's terrible if you talk about it. I'm like, we have no choice but to talk about it, because half of us don't know what's going on.
You make an extraordinarily key point here. I was debating a professor at a local university, Towson State University, and then one at George Washington University, and they were talking about slavery at this time, and they were saying that, well, slavery have existed almost forever. And what I explained to them, I said to them that there's never been a more diabolical system of slavery than that in the United States in the Atlanta slave trade. And they said, what do you mean about that? So I said, used to be when you had slavery, what you would have is the conquered. The people who were conquered in a war or a battle had to serve the people who actually won the war. To the victor go the spoils. But they never saw the people they enslaved as less than human. They just saw them that you lost, so you got to work for me. Here's your punishment. Only in this Atlantic slave trade that we actually reduced people to 3/4 human, and so much, it was so diabolical. And this is what people can't understand while we're still seeing the effect of that, is that you would have a mother, you would force a mother to have sex with her child if you thought that could make it better slave. Nowhere in the history of the world did anybody else come up with the concept of having a mother have sex with her child just so you could produce. The economics of it was that I need a bigger, stronger slave. So it didn't matter what the relationship was between the woman and the man. If I looked at them physiologically and biologically and say I can make a better slave, no other system in the history of the world had been more diabolical than that. So the impact, the manifestation of what we are seeing, the psychological manifestation, have carried on all the way up to this generation. To ask us to forget about that and not explain the psychology, because we talk about mental health issues all the time, how that migrates itself from generation to generation is ridiculous. And what I said to them at George Washington, I said, no one ever asked Jewish people to forget the Holocaust. We shouldn't ask that. No one ever asked the United States to forget the bombing of Pearl Harbor. In fact, Franklin Delano Roosevelt said, this is a day that will live in infamy. In other words, we will never forget this because it's so devastating to have one island bombed by the Japanese. So if we're never going to forget the bombing on Pearl Harbor, because Franklin Delano Roosevelt said this is a day that will live in infamy. If we never forget, you can go to the History Channel. If we're never going to forget World War I or World War II or the Vietnam, why would you ask people of color who went through the most diabolical system of slavery that has ever existed in humankind to not look at the manifestation of that in all of our systems, our criminal justice system, our economic system, our wealth, our families? We have to examine that. And anyone who tells us not to is not a friend of ours. They can't be, because they understand this.
Yeah, and I read a book that really opened up my eyes, and Kathy and I actually did a Instagram live about it one time. But there's this book called White Trash. It's a New York Times bestseller. It's from a historian, and she talks about the history of America from Europe. And what was interesting was that the people that came here, they were treated subhuman. They were always having the goalposts move. They were also very prone to incest, right? And they were called the trash people. They were called the trash people. So when the trash people came to America, it was just, they were all the same thinking. They were all the same cruelty. And I think sometimes people forget that even before America had slaves, they had witches. People were literally setting their women on fire because they were a witch. They weren't a witch nowhere else in history, but somehow they got to America and all of a sudden became witches. So this particular group that founded America was just an extra layer of cruelty. And before I was a finance major, I was pre-med, and you'll be surprised how many things are actually ingrained in you, ingrained. Like my family's from Mississippi, and we have eating habits. We have some very interesting eating habits, and everybody knows what I mean. And I work out and I change and all that, but I still got pork rinds in the cabinet because I haven't quite kicked it, right? And that's something small and funny, but this hatred and this idea of what's right and wrong, I don't know if it's ever been worked on enough for it to be cured.
Right. And for you're absolutely right, for it to be undone. And again, I go back to the founder of Black History Month, Negro History Week, that became Black History Month, Dr. Carter G. Woodson, when he said, if you control a man's thinking, you don't have to worry about his actions. You don't have to tell him to go here or there. He will go without being told. You don't have to tell him to go to the back of the bus or the back of the room. He will go without being told. And if there is no back, he will carve out a door. Because the mind, the key is for the, if I can control the education system, if I can control the criminal justice system, if I can control the health, think about this for 1 minute as a quick aside. We are some of people of color, and mainly we're talking about Black people now, have some of the greatest health problems, right? But we don't own a hospital. So in the Catholic tradition, did a presentation at a Catholic school last week. They may have the Catholic church, Saint so-and-so, but then they'll have a Catholic hospital. In the Jewish tradition, they may have the synagogue, but then their hospital is called Jewish Hospital or Jewish Children's Hospital, because they understand sick and hungry people don't make good revolutionaries and don't make good agents of change. So they deal with this whole. And I think that's what we talk about when we're talking about the system or systemic changes and dealing with systemic changes. The fact that we have never adequately studied this COINTELPRO, counterintelligence program created by J. Edgar Hoover for the sole purpose of dismantling and redirecting Black organizations and getting rid of Black leaders. The fact that there's not a course in this, and I told the president of some of the universities I've gone to, Coppin State University, Bowie State University, Clark Atlanta, if you don't have an entire course dedicated to what this program was designed to do, you can't understand the manifestation of it today. Remember, not only was this program implemented, it was extremely successful. It destroyed the SCLC. It really did. It absolutely destroyed the SCL. There were so many informants inside the SCLC. If you watch the latest movie, Judas and the Black Messiah, it killed Fred Hampton. If you like what it did, the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense, it took Huey P. Newton and Eldridge Cleaver and put them against each other. Now, let me say this to you. As a special agent in the FBI, when I worked for that agency, I actually went back in the file rooms and looked at the files. They intentionally put these two people against each other, had letters written, copied their handwriting, and Eldridge Cleaver actually believed that Huey P. Newton was saying these things against him as he was on the East Coast or the West Coast for the Black Panther Party. They actually believed these letters at the FBI, this propaganda campaign. But if we knew that history, we wouldn't fall for it again. We wouldn't be on social media reposting things that we hadn't investigated, because we understand that that's how COINTELPRO, we reposted and spread the word and destroyed people's reputations. We destroyed their ability to earn financially. We had destroyed their families based on rumors that we couldn't even verify. The FBI have released all of the COINTELPRO papers. You can get them online. The government had to release them under the Freedom of Information Act. So you don't have to say, I'm guessing about this. So this is a conspiracy. The organizations, it essentially drove King to the point of depression under COINTELPRO being followed day and night. J. Edgar Hoover suggested that Dr. King commit suicide. He followed the Black Panther Party from day and night. They killed Fred Hampton in Chicago and ended up paying out a financial settlement. But even if they had to pay out the financial settlement, guess what? They destroyed these organizations that were creating a movement would have manifested itself in a totally different reality than we are experiencing now, with crime in our cities, with miseducation, with not only underdevelopment, but de-development. We are developed, and now we're going backwards because this COINTELPRO thing works so perfectly. So if we don't understand it, we cannot counter it and prevent it from happening again. This COINTELPRO program, if you can move to the next slide, this COINTELPRO program was extremely effective and impactful. According to the FBI, you may be familiar with William O'Neill. He's the one that led to the assassination of Fred Hampton Sr. He gave them the information. He was the informant. He did the floor plan. And when Eyes on the Prize came out, he did an interview for that. Once he knew that was going to be exposed, he committed suicide because he realized that how much damage he had caused at being an informant for the FBI, infiltrating the Black Panther Party for self-defense. leading to the death of Fred Hampton, which again is what the movie, this is the guy who was the informant in that movie. This is his actual picture. He committed suicide before the airing of Eyes on the Prize because he realized people was going to know now that he was a part of the operation that actually led to the destruction and death of Fred Hampton. But if you go to the documents that are now published, and this is what I teach young people, so because they can't count on what they don't understand, that you can't ask them to understand how it's systemic racism if you don't understand the system and the foundation that brought it here. We give them to today and now. We almost like we all have we only focus on today unless we line it up. Well, once we line it up for them, they completely understand it and they can see it coming. But the FBI write on the documents that have been released that the way that this program was going to work was infiltration. They was going to get blacks to go into these organizations as agent provocateurs, cause problem, bring back information like the death of Fred Hampton, deception, put us against each other. There's a document in the COINTELPRO papers that if you go online, you can read it. The FBI had to release it again, where a special agent in charge, SAC, in San Diego is writing to the then head of the FBI saying that I should get a bonus because I've managed to put these two black gangs together and had them kill each other. So he was saying that the FBI through COINTELPRO said that we have to divide these groups. J. Edgar Hoover's exact words was that as trite as a saying as it is, there is power in unity, right? So he had to divide them. So now we got the Crips and the Bloods. We got groups. When I do prison, gang intervention in prisons, we got people yelling East Side and West Side, and you don't own property on either side. But psychologically, that's what's been done to you. And it was a program. It's not by happenstance. It's just not that we're divided because we're innately, intuitively, and naturally divided, because intuitively and innately, we want to be unified. But this program, which has been released to the public, which the FBI have said, we absolutely did this. We apologize for it. Under the Freedom of Information Act, we did this, but it has divided and have manifested itself in our community in ways we see today with the Black Guerrilla family, the Crips and Blood, the violence from East Side to West Sides in our communities. But unless the young people understand how this came to be, then they won't change their behavior. That's what I'm saying. We are providing superficial solutions to a systemic problem that have been made concrete over the years. We can move to the next slide. So these were the two of the tactics, right? The J. Edgar Hoover said that Martin Luther King Jr. was the most notorious liar in the country. The FBI chief posted in newspapers across the country, attacked Martin Luther King personally by saying that he was the most notorious liar in the country. And because people feared J. Edgar Hoover, they printed this everywhere. And it had an impact not only on whites, but on black people too, this propaganda. So harassment and intimidation, right? He actually wrote this. This is major newspapers printed this particular story. We can move on because I know time is of the essence and I want to get through a number of things. But right as we leave there, I want to argue that in order to reform policing, in order to reform the intelligence agencies, we need to know that history. I've spoken to groups recently associated with Black Lives Matter, and I say, listen, before you ask for police reforms, because you really don't mean that you want to defund the police, because the fact of the matter is, in the condition that we're living now in some of our areas, the people who need the police the most are those senior citizens, children who are being shot randomly on the way to school by stray bullets. So you really don't want to do that. But in order to reform them in a way that's effective for our communities, you've got to go back and understand this history. If you're just looking at the recent incidents and the recent shootings, and you base your reform tactics on that, we will only reform it for a short period of time. They will be episodic at best. And what we need is some permanent solutions, which require us to go back and see the entire system and have got here so that our solutions can be from that. When I'm looking at policies that the police agencies are hiring me to rewrite their or to reevaluate their use of force policies, I need to go back and look at the entire policy, how it got here, so I can reform it adequately so that it not only impacts what's written on paper, but impacts the psychology of the officers that are already on the force and that you will hire after this. All of them have got to go into retraining. Rewriting the policy doesn't change the mind of the officers who are executing that policy. So when I go in to evaluate the policies of police agencies, I said, listen, as soon as we rewrite this policy, we have to start in-service training, and we have to train everyone that's coming into the agency. Because it doesn't matter if your policy has changed if the mindset of the people executing the policy hasn't changed. That's what we should be saying. Not just yelling and screaming about police reform. It should be reformed. I'm not disagreeing with that. But we have to do the meticulous work of reforming the policy and making it effective and making it something that can be executed so that we can see change, and we're not addressing this issue over and over again every year. These are the disproportionate statistics that most of us know about shootings by race. Let me say something. You can move to the next slide, but let me say something about this. They're not just white police officers. They're also police officers of color involved in these shootings, which we can't address all of that tonight, but I'm talking about the psychology of policing historically designed to control Black people, whether it was through lynchings, right? This slide here, I just kind of made a comparison from 1882 to 1968, 4,743 lynchings occurred in the United States. Of these, 3,446 were Black. That's so disproportionate. I mean, lynching shouldn't happen to anyone. But if you can see the targeted group through this, then you understand the systemic racism. In 2017, police shooting rates continue over the, if the same rates that we have now with George Floyd and others continue over the next 86 years, for hypothetically speaking, we would have 16,426 Black people will die at the hands of police. It will be worse than what we call the Red Summer of 1919 and the lynchings that have occurred during this time, during the time of the death of Emmett Till, unless we do something permanent, not just to deal with one case. As horrific as the murder of George Floyd was, the solutions have to be systemic and have to take into consideration this history and have to deal with all the things, the other things that we're talking about, how it disenfranchises us, how it, the wealth, the education piece, unless we put that whole thing, and we have to put that together. Unfortunately, we farm out police reform to colleges and universities. It's almost a paternalistic and condescending relationship that most of the people who we accept as being the experts on police reform don't look like us. So as well-meaning as they might be, they can't feel it. They can think it. They know about the historic racism. They know about the diabolical Atlantic slave trade, but they can't feel it. You need a combination of someone who can feel it and someone who can think about it to be involved in this police reform. And I guarantee you this, even as we reform policies across this particular country, look at it, what's happening now. As we reform laws and policies and rewrite policies and guidelines in these agencies, I guarantee the people who are doing the rewriting don't look like me and you. And that's problematic, but that's something else that we should address right now at this window of opportunity after the murder of George Floyd. We can move on. Mass incarceration throughout the generations. And here's the thing about the mass incarceration. In many cases, none of it, if we go back and look at it, was designed to dramatically reduce crime. It was just designed to lock more people up. When Richard Nixon created the DEA during his administration, when he created the Drug Enforcement Administration, one of the things he said about his presidency is he said chaos actually creates more power for the president. He said if the country doesn't have chaos, they don't need a strong leader. So you almost have to convince people that we're in complete chaos. Because we had the Bureau of Narcotics that was a drug agency before that, but he was able to create the DEA because he said a scourge is coming with drugs. The 1960s, crime went up 100%. They didn't identify all the reasons for it, but crime went up 100%. Ronald Reagan, when the crack cocaine epidemic came in, when we learned from countries like Bolivia and Peru, which was the sources of the people who developed the techniques for developing crack cocaine. It was brought down here. Freeway Ricky Ross, obviously, was used by the Central Intelligence Agency. And by the way, we had a great conversation after he got out of prison. He called me and said that he was able to read my book while he was in prison. We had a great conversation over the telephone. I won't get more into that about the evolution of this drug problem and the manifestation, because he alone couldn't have convinced that many people across a nation to use crack cocaine, as addictive and devastating as it was. He needed a propaganda machine, and that was his connection with the Central Intelligence Agency. It's not a conspiracy theory. There have been books written about it. We just got to get to reading in them. And then Bill Clinton and their policies that led to further mass incarceration. Again, we can delve more into that at another time, but we can move on from this because I know time is short. I think you gave me an hour. The statistics of disproportionality that many of us know, but the manifestation, these are just numbers. These are real people. The manifestation of this is real people. And think about how it's connected to education. For example, in the state of Maryland, you're not considered a dropout unless you have attended 1 day of high school. So you have to attend 9th grade in order to be written up as a dropout. The average education of the prison population is an 8th grade education. So they're not even dropouts. They're not even counted in those numbers. So if we can't identify the root of the problem, we can never come up with concrete solutions. But these are numbers that many of us know about. The disproportionate 38% of the U.S. population is African American or Black. We're only 12 to 13% of the population. There's something else going on there, and we have to do it through understanding the system of racism that brought us to this particular point, the system of corruption, the systemic issues that we keep speaking to, but that we haven't studied so that we can come up with the proper solutions. We can move on. Nationally, the number of kids who have had a parent in jail or prison at some point in their childhood hovers around 5.1 million. The impact of mass incarceration, the generational impact of mass incarceration, not just on incarceration and crime and that but on wealth, generational wealth. Think about this. How do you pass something on to your children? How do you develop generational wealth with these kind of statistics? Move to the next slide, please. National data shows that Black girls are the fastest growing demographic affected by school discipline because they're automatically seen as all kind of things. I won't get into that today. School discipline, arrests, and referrals to the juvenile justice system. The fastest growing demographic. Now, unless we think young Black girls are innately and intuitively criminal, why would they be the fastest growing? First of all, they suffer from benign neglect. Even as we come up and address the issues with Black males in prisons and in juvenile justice camps, we kind of neglect Black girls. We do. It's not. It may not be malicious, but it's from benign neglect. And as a result of that, this is what we're looking at. The suicide rate for Black girls have doubled. Think about this. And if you look at the CDC statistics, it talks about the doubling of the suicide rate for Black children between the age of 7 and 13. Now, if you're coming in out of your mother womb and by the age of 7 and 13, you're willing to commit suicide, that's not your fault. That's something that the people who should be intervening in your life, because no child comes in this world thinking about dying. No child comes in this world thinking about being a drive-by shooter or addicted to drugs or dropping out of school. Children are innately curious when they leave their mother womb. There's something systematic that will lead to these kind of statistics for Black men and Black girls.
And I want to add too, and this is just for me creating a series and really taking the time to look and analyze things. That might also be because Black women are the most educated group in America now. And what can be happening is because we're looked at as this group that's going to only create more and more power, they might be trying to get us at the knees.
That's right. And no doubt about it. So and because we know that, those of us who are in positions of change, this is why I have to keep going back to State's Attorney Aisha Brayboy, because we know that we can begin to put mechanisms in place to change that. And I think that's what she and many others, Marilyn Mosby here in Baltimore, and many other Black women who have taken these positions of power across the nation, they're very good at what they do. They're prosecutors. They know what they're supposed to do. They want to reduce crime. They want to keep people from being victims. They understand. Me and Ms. Brayboy talked about the whole concept of how the policing become law enforcement. And I kind of explained that history to us. Policing used to mean protect and serve. In the 1960s, because of the rise of all the civil rights organizations and the Black Panther Party, we changed the name from policing to law enforcement. In the term law enforcement is the word force. We're no longer going to protect and serve. We're going to use force to make you follow the law. So even in the term law enforcement that didn't used to exist, early on, policing was policing in the early part of this century. In fact, the Irish got into it at a time because they wanted to control whether their people got records and were disenfranchised or not. That's where the term paddywagon came from, because they used to go around picking up their people who commit petty crimes and take them home rather than take them to jail. So they say if we control policing, if we go into this field, then we can make sure that our people are not arrested disproportionately, which was one of the solutions, which I'll jump to for a minute. More of us have to go into this particular field. What happens is the more we see bad policing, the more we scream, well, why would I want to be a part of bad policing? So the solution would be to let the people who are policing now continue to police. If we start developing people to protect and serve in our own communities, who have a relationship with our communities, then we will see a dramatic reduction in these kind of confrontations that lead to the shooting of unarmed Black people. Secondly, we will see a dramatic reduction in crime. If we take the positions, Aisha Brayboy and others could have said, well, prosecutors got to do a better job, or Aisha Brayboy can say, you know what, I'm going to become the state's attorney and I'm going to do the job that I'm asking others to do. Rather than asking police officers to police us right, we're going to develop our own police officers to police us right. Instead of asking others, instead of appealing to their heart, we're going to become the change that we want to see by taking on these positions. The philosophy have always been for us to protest policing, which we should when it's bad policing, but at the same time not consider, well, I'm going to take your job. And we do that in sports easily. If we think we are a better wide receiver, we say, and I'm going to take your position. We're going to go into camp, and I'm not going to just complain about your being not a good receiver, wide receiver. I'm going to take your position. I'm going to be the next quarterback. I'm going to be the next Patrick Mahomes. I'm going to take the position. I'm going to change the position of quarterback in the NFL till we have more black quarterbacks. But for some reason in policing, in the prosecutor's office, we want them to change, but we don't want to become the change. That's the significance of the brilliance of Aisha Brayboy and other people who have taken the positions across this country. And that's what I'm advocating for, more of us. You know, Dr. King once said something when they asked him about whether he was trying to make white people love him. He said, no. He said, you misunderstand me. He said, only God can change a man's heart. He said, I'm not trying to make them love me. I'm trying to keep them from lynching me. So the objective is to help us to make progress, to keep us from being shot as unarmed Black men, to be incarcerated as young women. So we have to take on these positions. That's part of the solutions I want to get to. But I'll move to this quickly unless it's time to go, because I know you said we had an hour. And obviously, an hour is not enough, so I can come back at some other time if we don't have the time. I can't hear you.
Okay, I'm here. What I would love for you to do is, Kathy, you can stop his slide. What I would love for you to do is really just talk about the solution. So one of the things that you're saying is we do need to get ourselves in the law enforcement world and get more people in that industry. And then also you're saying that ultimately the laws need to change. In order for that to change, we need more people that can change the laws and who understand the laws. I know that there are a lot of Black attorneys. I don't know what type. I know there are a lot of Black attorneys coming out right now. So what else are you thinking? Is that, or those?
Yeah, those things, and not only change the laws, but change the guidelines. Like the use of force guidelines in police agencies are not necessarily the law, but it's what police officers are trained to and operate by. So we need to look at them. I'm blessed to have had the opportunity of late to been asked to review guidelines and to reorganize them and rewrite them, and I've brought in other people to help me dissect, not only in policing but in corrections, so that when people go to prison, they can come out better rather than worse, because when they come out of prison, they come back to our community. And what we've noticed from the individuals who I had connections with in corrections is that whatever goes on that side of the wall will eventually end up on this side of the wall, unless there's an intimate, or whether there's a connection between the police commissioner and the chief of corrections. For example, if I'm the police commissioner of a city, I should have regular conversations with the guy who's heading the Department of Corrections, because I can kind of see, and we can work together to reform people, because they come back to our communities. When people come out of prison, they don't say, well, you know what, I'm in prison, so I'm gonna go move into an all-white community. No, whatever happens to them or doesn't happen to them in prison, if they are made progressively worse by what they experience in that prison, whatever happens to them in there, they're coming back to us. So we need to begin to look at corrections suffer from benign neglect too. We talk about policing, we talk about prosecutors, we talk about the courts, but corrections are, and most of the people who go to prison are not getting the death penalty, or they're not getting life sentences. And we don't want them to, but most of them are coming back to us. So how do we, that's not, when we're talking about criminal justice reform, let's not leave corrections out of that conversation. We've got to start having that conversation. Immediately, though, we have to, as we deal with training in police agencies, we have to understand systemic racism, the laws that got us to where we are today, the manifestation from the slave patrols to where we are today, because that mentality, no matter what you're teaching in the academy, that mentality is still in the minds of some police officers. I would venture to say that if we could hire more conscious Black police officers, because not all Black police officers, famous saying, everyone is color is not my kind, are conscious, then you couldn't have Officer Chauvin put his knee on the neck of George Floyd, and a Black police officer of conscious stand by there who wouldn't say, hey man, no, you got to stop that. He's under control. Really, you're going to have to stop that. And I'm not asking you again, because I've took an oath to protect the people from all violators, whether they're in blue jeans or blue uniforms. Those kind of concrete solutions. And many more that I have that I can put in writing and get to you, and maybe you can distribute to your listeners, because we got to do better, and we can start doing that today.
Yeah, and I think maybe we can do some, maybe, I don't know if you're familiar with Instagram, but sometimes.
Yeah. I'm not an expert at it, but I'm familiar with it. And I have a son who's definitely familiar with it.
Okay, we'll have to do some Instagram lives. All right, okay. Now thank you so much. I want to go to the money part of the conversation right now. Can you hear me? Can you hear me now? I was saying. Okay, sorry. I was saying we're going to get to the money part of the conversation. I would love to do some social media stuff with you, because we only do this once at the top of the month. And Jamie, can you put in Dr. Powers' email address as well? Dr. Powers, you're okay with people emailing you, correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, awesome. Jamie, put in his email address in the chat room, and it looks like you were so thorough. We don't even have questions, which is interesting. And what I want to do right now is I want to take it back to Gilbert says, can you discuss why officers of color become part of the problem instead of solution? Gilbert, that was talked about in the culture of policing one we had last time. So we're going to do a prison series as well. We're done with this series in September. So today we wanted to talk about Black men, and what I'm discovering is that the policing conversation is so thick and so full of weeds that there are so many things that we didn't even get to talk. I wanted to talk about the government bombing so many different cities that we only know about, Tulsa and a few, and the gaslighting in terms of that, but we'll have to get to it another time, or maybe on social media. let's talk about money. Thank you so much. And she's going to put your email up there for whatever reason. We don't have it. She might text you, so keep an eye out for that. Okay.
Yeah,
Great. Thank you, Dr. Powers. I'm going to turn your video off. And okay, so how do we do this? Yes. Okay. All right, you guys. So thank you so much. So you guys, his part is done. So he won't be able to answer any questions. I'm so sorry. I know he's amazing and we're so blessed and honored to have all that information. But I want to talk about money right now because, as I mentioned earlier, systemic racism does function best through poverty. And there are so many things that have been set up to keep, to separate people from their money. Like if you do get stopped by the police, then you do get a record. Not only will your job employment be affected, but also you can't even get life insurance. He was talking about leaving a legacy. You can't even get life insurance if you have a felony and all that good stuff. So Kathy, bring up my portion. All right, so I'm going to talk about this company. And I like to reference things that were said by our speaker. Again, my name is Saria Rigo, and I have the privilege of sharing not only some financial information, but the business opportunity with our company. I'm from Chicago, Illinois, born and raised. I was raised by a single mom. And she worked very hard, but she just never had any money. And it was never a problem until honestly, my nephew was picked up by the police for a case of mistaken identity. And we didn't have $5,000 to pay for a lawyer for him. And then that's when I realized money makes you vulnerable in the Black community. So we need more Black police officers. And we also need more people of color in the financial sector so that we can start having real conversations about what we need to do to get from point A to B. Because if point A to B, if A is poverty and B is wealth, if there's a straight line, that straight line is not for you, right? So you need to know exactly how systemic racism has affected this line so that you can get to the end result properly. So our team did a search to find out the percentage of Blacks that even major in finance, because we really wanted to know. If you guys haven't figured it out, I love to understand and study history. And we started really looking at the Black people in finance, and there wasn't even a number. It wasn't even a number. That's how small the number is. There wasn't one. And what we're doing right now is we're trying to get that number up. And I am hearing something. Hold on one second, but I don't see where it is. Dr. Powers, can you mute yourself? Dr. Powers? Okay. Kathy, can you mute him? Okay. Oh, he left the room. Oh, no, I didn't want him to leave the room. All right. So finance as a career, you guys, it's just not a popular industry. Like he was saying, I think we've been conditioned to not be attracted to the financial sector. I think we've been conditioned to think it's scary, to think it's dangerous. Even the financial professionals that we have in the industry right now, there was a study done in June of 2018 that said that 58% of present financial advisors that are Black and Latino, they never even thought it, and they're doing it. So this might be your reality as well. You might not have thought about finance as a career. However, this is such an opportune time in history because right now people are aggressively looking for what they can do with their money. So this is a time where I think we can put Blacks on the map in order to create a financial revolution, because making money is great, but that's not wealth. That's not wealth. There weren't barriers to making money. There's barriers to creating wealth. So there is a difference. And what makes us unique is that we help everyone plan for their future. not just the wealthy. So as you're listening to me talk, you guys, just keep 3 perspectives in mind. Just think about anyone that you know that would benefit from this conversation. And we did an amazing promotion because of one of our amazing associates named Raquel Pomplin. She has 4 million followers on her Facebook around, and over 600,000 on her Instagram. So we're gonna create some ways to highlight and promote the people that are supporting us, because we need all the help we can get. That's true. So think about people that you think might benefit from that. Think about people that you think need to hear this conversation. And they don't have to be people of, they don't have to be Black. As you see our team in the commercial, we're every race, right? But we do understand right from wrong. So, and then also think about if you need more financial education, because right now business ownership in the Black community is a re-emerging concept. And unfortunately, when we go to college, we're not going to college usually to become business owners. We're going to college to become professionals. So there's a disconnect. So even though we're college educated, we still don't necessarily have control over our careers. And most of you guys right now, we're all looking at it. We're looking at how we can become a business owner, especially during COVID. And you probably never thought of finance in that space, but I would invite you to consider it today. And what we're trying to do here is we're trying to create generations of people who understand how their money works, because that money is used to protect your families and your communities. And then plus we do have a system, just like racism functions through our system, we have another system that helps you build a strong business that can help you change your generations to come. Now, when you're thinking about an exceptional business opportunity, I'm sure a lot of you guys are just like, oh my God, that's too much responsibilities. I don't want to be a business owner. I don't want to deal with HR. I don't want to deal with social media marketing. I don't want to deal with payroll and all that good stuff. But what's great is we take care of that here, right? But there's still a few things that you need to think about. So in terms of need, you guys, you can type a yes or a no in a chat room if you believe, or if you agree or not. But do you guys think that people need more financial education? Type yes, financial education. Do you guys think that people need help planning for their future? You'll be surprised. One of my goals here is to have people create their future with their words, because once we give it words, we can it breathes life into it, and now we have a path, and that's good enough. The words started, right? You'll be surprised how many people don't even want to give their future words. They want to be in a scarcity place of only planning for the week or the month. And it doesn't work that way. And do you guys believe that people need to make extra money while paying less in taxes? There's a new tax law that Biden's going to be implementing. And I'll be honest with you, I'm going to give you the quick lowdown of that. That tax law affects the top 1%. Basically, what just happened is the capital gain tax went up from 20% to 39%, the highest capital gain tax. Not all capital gain taxes, the highest capital gain tax. In order for you to have capital gains, that means you have to have investments. Most people of color don't have investments. But for those people that do have investments, that's around close to $500,000 in investments that you're pulling out a year to be impacted by that law. So it's not, he's really targeting the 1%, but that does not mean that historically everyone else wasn't targeted with the tax laws, right? Because historically the bottom half paid the most. Now he's not making it where the bottom half is paying less. He's making it where the top half is paying what the bottom half was paying. But one day, hopefully the bottom half will pay less because their wages are not increasing with with inflation. So if you believe that people need to make extra money, type yes. And all of these questions, you guys, just give you an idea of basic supply and demand. We have a demand, but we don't have enough supply. So in terms of our business platform, the effective business platform, our system is very simple. And to explain the system, think of McDonald's, right? They are one of the most lucrative businesses in the world, and the company runs on robots and young people. That's a system. A system is simple, transferable, and duplicatable. So using our systems, agents have changed their lives through this company. And there are endless opportunities. But what if you're already in your dream profession? What if? And that's great for you. But one of the realities as being a person of color in America is that there might be people that you need to help. So there might be people in your family or your community who aren't at your level. So we have a system that allows you to help them build a business no matter what their background is or yours, right? So now instead of giving handouts like you might have done, you get to give a hand up, you get to mentor the people that you want to help. So as a result of that, we work with people like New York Times bestselling authors. We work with homemakers. We work with NFL Hall of Famers, taxi cab drivers, financial professionals, students, anyone who has a desire to want to win here can. And wouldn't it be nice to expose your family members to that? Wouldn't it be nice to expose your community to that? Not only giving them an opportunity to make money, but an opportunity to educate them about the financial sector. Because again, it doesn't matter how much we make if we don't understand how to create wealth. So most people don't need a handout. They need a hand up. And I've learned that. So in terms of our compensation, you know, in college, we're taught to be employees or to create our own practice, but real financial independence comes from having cash flow, from having assets that create cash flow. So this business allows us to actually create those assets that create those that cash flow. So instead of you being such a hard worker for a company, you're going to work here and whatever time you have, and you're going to get to build some equity that you'll be able to leverage. And let's talk about timing. Great timing. Timing is everything, you guys. What I love about what Dr. Powers was saying is that, you know, the BLM movement is great, and we need to look at history and all that good stuff. That's the timing, right? We can't just look at George Floyd. We can't just look at Tamir Rice. We can't just look at Sandra Bland. We can't just look at those individuals, because there's probably countless more individuals whose names we don't even know that were impacted, right? But that's one part of the education equation. Right now, people are also in the financial world. We're hungry, we're thirsty, we're looking at cryptocurrency, we're looking at GameStop, we're looking at Stash, we're looking at Robinhood, we're looking at Facebook groups, and we're listening for tips. But people aren't wealthy from listening for tips, right? They're not wealthy from getting advice on Facebook. They are wealthy because they have guidance. They have advisors, CPAs, attorneys that are committed to making sure they get from point A to B. If you have a team, that's the big differentiating factor. And what we know is you either need a team or you should be on our team. So we want to help you either way. Whether you want to buy a home, refinance your house, buy a business, pay off your student loan debt, or become a consistent activist, no matter what's going on, you guys, the time to change is right now, today. And our core values, you guys, our company focuses on personal growth. We focus on family. I've been reading some statistics about Black women entrepreneurs, and there's a big exodus of educated Black women in corporate America. Why? Because that those systems don't make us feel good, right? But what's great about here is that that's not our culture. We create our own business. We create our own system here. So this can be as big or as small as you want, but there are no glass ceilings because you create the ceiling. All right. And then these are just some statistics that talk about the need of financial literacy and planning and all that good stuff. And unfortunately, you guys, just as he showed us statistics for Blacks in prison versus the our percent of the population, these numbers are worse if you just look at Blacks. So in the interest of time, let's go down to the slide without financial security, there can be. Right now, there's such a emphasis on mental health. And Dr. Powers was talking about Black women, young women committing suicide. That number is even higher for young men, as said by our speaker, psychologist, Dr. Akilah Reynolds, who was our speaker on the first series about mental health. Emotions are powerful, right? And many of us are functioning through trauma and things of that nature. But financial trauma is optional. It is optional. I promise you, it's optional. I might not be able to help the world issues yet, but I will, I promise you. But right now, the financial issues, you guys, there are things that are out of your control, but your money should never be. And in terms of the next slide, what is wealth? Let's talk about what is wealth. Wealth is not cash in the bank, right? Wealth is financial security requires discipline and the ability to determine needs versus your wants. And we guide our clients to create healthy financial habits. I love Elizabeth Warren. She lobbied on Capitol Hill against the credit card companies. And because of that, she created the healthy budget concept. And all it is the ability and the commitment to pay yourself first. As financial professionals, if you are ready to pay yourself first, we're going to be able to legally reduce your taxes. We're going to be able to minimize your debt, no different than we do for everyone else. And that's going to help you start building that wealth. And then most importantly, making more muscles for financial success. And that is what we want you to create and leave with your family so that we can get that generational wealth going. And then in terms of how we conduct our businesses. So you guys, what we offer here as a financial professional, and for those of you who don't know what a financial professional is, it's a person that sits down with you and creates a financial plan for you using the tools that are out there in the market, whether it's insurance, investments, your mortgage, debt repayment or debt reduction, estate planning, all of those things. What we're doing is we're helping you create a plan for you. It's not some big blanket strategy based on some financial guru online that just gives out blanket information. We are your dedicated professional. And there have been so many times when I, as a young advisor, I would tell people that, and all my friends will run in the other direction because they're like, oh, I can't afford what you're doing. If you're an advisor, I can't do it. I can't afford it. I don't have enough. But what's great about our team is the same way that we're creating that we're committed to creating a change through just social education or financial social justice activism. We're committed to creating that in the financial space as well. So no matter what your situation is, we can help you, and we're going to do a better job than you by yourself because we're professionals, right? So we'll sit with you for a quick introduction of who we are. If you're interested in the conversation, we'll have a conversation about who we are and what we do, and then we're going to start educating you. And our education is no cost. And the reason why we do that is because once you know better, you're going to be a better partner for us. And we want you to be the better partner for us. And you're going to be a better partner for your family. So everyone on this call, we will be reaching out to introduce ourselves. And what we will love is if we can't help you with just complimentary education. Again, it's our privilege, it's our honor to be able to educate you for no cost. But if we can't help you with that, if you know anyone that would benefit from this, please make introductions and write them down and give it to us later because we appreciate that. And all of our appointments are rooted in financial education. So now I'm going to give you guys some concepts today that you can take moving forward. Let's go straight to the managing risk. So this is really about the rule of 72. So the rule of 72 is about compound interest. Compound interest is important because it can work for us just like it works against us with credit cards and student loans and car loans and payday loans and all the loans. And how it works is if you take 72 and divide it into the interest rate of whatever your investment is getting, it's going to give you a number. That number represents approximately the years that it takes for your money to double, right? So if you're 29 and let's say you have $10,000 and you're getting 1%, 72 into 1 means every 72 years your money's going to double, right? So the game there is to make sure that you're getting as high of a return as you can. But unfortunately, a lot of people are afraid of the market because they don't understand how it works. So before we can really play with this concept of making sure that your money's growing, we want to make sure that we're educating you about what happens there. And in terms of strategies, you guys, debt, a lot of times when people sit with us, they really want to get rid of their debt. We want you to get rid of your debt, but not at the expense of you building wealth. We do them at the same time, right? It's like, you know, drinking water and getting good sleep. You do it at the same time. You don't only drink water one week and get sleep the next week. It's all done together. So, oh, and for those of you guys who are on here, I know it's because you're committed to creating wealth. So I'm going to give you a story that I want you to share. There was a billionaire, and I think I read about it in Business Week or Forbes, but the long and short of it is they said that if every newborn started with a $6,000 investment, that would close the wealth gap in the Black community within one generation. A $6,000 investment, you guys, not $6,000 in a savings bond, not $6,000 in the bank, not $6,000 under the bed, none of that. $6,000 in an investment. Even a mediocre investment of 6% would still give you about $355,000 at the age of 70, right? So if you had a higher percent, definitely. So as financial professionals, we want you to make money, but we also have to think about taxes. So let's go down to the tax slide. You guys, taxes are very important. We believe that we have no say-so in taxes. But meanwhile, we see people like Mitt Romney and Trump and all of these wealthy politicians paying single-digit taxes while we're paying 30% and 28 and 34 and all that good stuff. We do have a choice in what we pay in terms of our taxes. So it's important for your money to make money, but it's just as important to make sure that you're minimizing your taxes. And I'm going to share with you something that I just realized this week. I've been in the financial sector for over 13 years. I was an entrepreneur for 7 years and a model, and I traveled the world and all this really fun stuff. But in my 13 years in the financial sector, you guys, I've seen taxes change at the most every 8 years. I've seen tax laws change, right? And sometimes you're on the good side of it, sometimes you're on the bad side of it. The vehicles where taxes are not paid at all, the vehicles that wealthy people use to manipulate their taxes, I haven't seen them change once yet. Not yet. Does it mean that they can't change? Absolutely not. They haven't changed yet, right? So if we're looking at how we're going to control more of our money, we really got to understand what we're doing and what the drawback of those things are. We think the biggest roadblock to building wealth is just financial illiteracy. That's it. And it doesn't matter if you're a business owner or an employee in the Black community, whether you have a degree or not, financial ignorance can affect us all. And it just means you're not maximizing your money in the same way that you would if you were someone else of a different race. All right. So you have a choice in terms of your taxes. It's just a matter of, would you rather pay taxes on the small amount, or would you rather have that money invested for, you know, until age 70? Would you rather pay taxes on the $6,000 or the $355,000? That's how it works. And if you're a business owner, you have even more ways to manipulate taxes because now you have all of these amazing deductions. So you guys, you have a choice in so many things, including who you partner with, if you partner with anyone at all. But we ask, me and my amazing team, that you all give us a chance to earn your friendship and relationship. So in terms of our complimentary financial plan, honestly, we look at everything that relates to your money, and we go through it with a fine-tooth comb. We do analysis, and there's no cost for that. We just ask that if it makes sense, you give us referrals. And in terms of the companies that we work with, next slide, Kathy, we work with some of the best companies in America. As a kid growing up on the south side of Chicago, you know, there were so many times where my mom didn't have enough and she would buy the generic stuff. And the reality is there's a cost to generic stuff. There's a cost. One of our associates says, nothing is more expensive than cheap. And I don't want the most hardworking people in America to not have access to the same products that are household names for the high net worth. And what makes us unique as a company and why I'm here at World Financial Group versus all of the wealth management companies that I've worked for in the past is because we're the only company that I've seen that allows everyday hardworking people to work with the best of the best. That's a big deal. I think it's a huge deal. So you guys, in closing, thank you so much. So we want to work with those of you guys who are committed to changing lives, whether it's your life or the lives of the people around you. In our company, there's no ceilings here, there's no politics, and there's amazing diversity. We are part of World Financial Group, and we call ourselves Heroes. And Heroes stands for helping everyone rise out. And that out is of poverty, despair, and hardship. And we're looking to create more heroes for their families and their communities because we consider it to be our responsibility to change the world. So to learn more about the Black Wealth Series, please go to our website, www.bwmeducationalseries.com. And please follow us on social media. The links are on our website. Tag us out and use the hashtag at BWM Series. And thank you guys for everything. And I hope you guys got some amazing information.
Crossing county lines just to make my name in the city. Took everything, put it on the line, cause I never break or back down. One shot is do or die.
Welcome to the bottom of the bottom. Me and Sing Asylum. If I saw him and I had to get him, yeah, I finally got him. Corner boost to mix up the solution. I am such a problem. Crazy gooning, gone up that pollution with a group of goblins, super choppers, and they hoot and holler when we scooping dollars, losing partners. But if you started, we gon' finish it. Welcome to the wild side. You know what the business.
I'm a boss, I'm a king, I'm right on the top. I'm a boss, I'm a king, I cannot be stopped. I'm a boss, I'm a king, I'm right on the top. I'm a boss, I'm a king, I cannot be stopped. I'm a boss, I'm a king, I'm right on the top. I'm a boss, I'm a king, I cannot be stopped. I'm a boss, I'm a king, I'm right on the top. I'm a boss, I'm a king, I'm a boss, I'm a...
I am a king on the throne and I'm running the kingdom with all my ability, using my strength and agility. Money.
Put your hands up, everybody knows that. Don't hold back, got you on go jack. Go DJ, that's my DJ. Party on replay, party on replay.
We've always had not just a system of racism in our country, but also classism.
Black people have always wanted to be a part of the economic mainstream of society.
There's been mistrust, as I said, in the healthcare system because of inherent racism.
Slavery was justified by physicians and psychiatrists who argued that instead of oppressing us, they were benefiting us.
I guess I'd like to see more people having more of an equal voice.